Hello. Hello. I'm here. I'm back. Hi, Biggie, when you look up for being first. Hi, Fudge. Being second. Hello. Hi. Is the music loud? Music might be a little loud. Hang on. I can fix this. It's because I was watching a movie, so I turned up my my browser just to hear everything a little bit louder. Anyway, hi. Where's my thing? Hi. Anyway, hi. It's Wednesday. Hi. I don't know what to say. I had a kind of a boring week, which is good, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, it was exhausting like I mentioned it would be, but on top of that, it was kind of boring, which is kind of good. But while we were gone, we had some follows: Veneration, Bluff Knight, and Clark. Clark numbers. Hello, welcome in. Ugh.
Hi, breasty rinkum argument.
Hi. Hi, Fudge. Thank you. Thanks for the 20 months. Oh, good lord, you're on your way to 2 full years. Oh, can you guys believe I've been streaming for... I think it'll be 3 years. Actually, I think it's 3 years this month. I'll be affiliate 3 years next month. And very few of you guys have actually been there the whole time. Fudge has been there a long time. I will say that. Fudge, you disappeared for a little bit, but you have been following for a really long time. You might be. I think you probably are one of my longest followers, aside from like my friend Lyra, maybe Red. I don't remember when Red showed up, but I think you guys are probably the longest we got. People have come and gone. Some people just left without saying a word. Some left on really bad terms, but maybe what it be. That's the life on the internet. People come and go if they're not what's the word, in person, I guess, right? If there's no physical connection, it's easier for people to just come and go depending on how things go. But yeah, so sometime next month you guys will randomly be able to say happy affiliate anniversary, because Twitch doesn't let me change that. It's like, hey, here you go, you fucking do whatever you want. What happened this week besides work? A new Digimon game came out. If you didn't hear about it, good. It's not really good, I'm gonna be honest. Basically, if you guys care to look it up, the game is called Digimon Up. Yes, just Up. And it's the worst kind of game that exists out there. It is an idle game where you do actually nothing. All you do is click on missions that get completed, like, hey, defeat 3 enemies. Yay, you beat 3 enemies. Click the thing. Yeah, it's a mobile idle game, so it's not really that good. The animations, like, it has like pixel sprites of all the Digimon. Immaculate. It's really nice. It's new animations too. New pixel animations. It's not like, I think it's just the designs are there, but it's just they're just new. They're updated, but so they look nice, but just the game itself is a piece of shit. Like, I played it for like 3 days and I'm like, I'm not really doing anything. I'm just staring at a screen. So it's yeah, it's a really bad cash grab of a game, unfortunately. So don't spend money on it. I don't really like that kind of game. This is, but have I tried Power World 1.0? I have not even tried Power World 0.0. So I have zero. I've had like 3 different people ask me if I'm gonna try Power World 1.0 or if I have tried Power World 1.0, and I'm gonna tell you guys right here, it's on the VOD. You guys will be able to see it. It'll be on. It'll be my statement forever. I have less than zero interest in playing Power World. I don't care how cool the Pals look, because some of them have actually been redesigned to look unique instead of just Cinderace but green. I don't care about the designs. Some of them do look cool. The reason I say that is I don't care about a base building game. That's not my style of game. So like, if I'm gonna trudge through a game that I am not gonna have fun playing just because there's cute animals in it, I don't know, feels like I'll be miserable. That's just me though. Like, some people love that style of game, some people have fun with it. Like, some people initially didn't like it, but then they played it and like, oh, you know, it's not so bad. I don't fucking care. That's just me. Like, no offense to the people that play it. Again, you guys can play it if you guys want. If you guys are enjoying it, hell yeah, have fun. Gotta get here and point the base stuff even is. I mean, from what I've seen, it is literally the point of the game. You are crafting, crafting to level up to get stronger to beat enemies and stuff. Divine Retro Reality, hi, welcome in. What is that? What does that say? Raid. Oh, Digimon. Are you spoiling a raid? If you're spoiling a raid, I don't know what to say. I'm gonna slap you, not in like the literal sense, but yeah. But yeah, from what I've seen of the game, because I've seen people play it before the 1.0 release, it seemed like the base building was the point of the game. Like, the pals were just tools to help you build your base. It's not like you're capturing pals to journey around the world and complete missions. No, like, you're exploring to get new materials to expand your base and make it stronger and everything. And that's not interesting to me. That's just me. Like, people can like it, that's fine. I don't care. I've seen so many people be like, why can't Nintendo make a game like this? And I'm like, first of all, they probably don't want to. Second of all, it's not Nintendo that makes Pokemon, that's Game Freak. It is technically not Nintendo. And third, I wouldn't want them to. That's just me. Like, I don't play Pokemon for like a base building aspect. I play Pokemon for the Pokemon, and even though Pokemon hasn't really evolved in what, 15 years, whenever XY came out, it doesn't mean it's not fun. The games just aren't polished. That's the biggest thing. Like, the games are fun, they're just never polished. They either look bad or they play bad in terms of, like, you know, frame rate and stuff, or like bugginess and everything. But they still sell well, and people wouldn't buy it if it didn't sell well. Like, the amount of people that are like, oh, I'm done with Pokemon, and then they, you know, they buy the game anyway. It's just, yeah, you were done, huh? Because nothing really strikes the itch that Pokemon has. Doesn't matter who you think you are, doesn't matter what you say about Pokemon. There is not a single game on the market that strikes the itch the way Pokemon does. And that's not just saying that because I've been a fan since I was a child and it's nostalgia bait. I've played Beastie Ball, and that's close, but it's also in beta, so I'm waiting for it to get a little bit more polished before I decide if it's like close enough to be like a Pokemon. Like, I played Nexomon, which is like basically the same style of game, and I just dropped it. It got boring to me. I don't know. There was something about it. Like, it was eventually Pokemon, but it just didn't hook me. I dropped it. I still have it on my Switch. I just stopped playing it. What else did I play that's a Pokemon like? I'm not gonna count Digimon as a Pokemon like, because it's not. And if you think that Digimon is Pokemon like, you have fundamentally misunderstood what Digimon is compared to what Pokemon is. And you're the reason why people think that Pokemon and Digimon can't exist in the same universe. What else? Trying to think, what other like creature catcher games have I played? I think those are basically the only ones that I've played. I don't go out of my way to play creature catcher games because, like, again, 90% of the time, they don't tickle me. They don't interest me the same way that like Pokemon games do, and that's not to shame them to say they're not good. I'm sure the games are good. It's just looking at the trailers or whatever, like people like a a highlight of somebody playing it, it doesn't make me want to play it. Whereas literally anytime I've ever watched somebody play Pokemon for the first time, it's made me want to play again, because it's like, fuck man, like that first experience is awesome. My only gripe with Pokemon is they're older games, they're all slow as hell, so kind of hard to go back. But that's just me. Mostly because I just don't have time to sit through a bunch of like slow dialogue. Hi Thunderbird. Hi. Yeah, I don't know. That's just me. Pal World, not interest for me. I don't care. You guys can have fun with it if you guys want. Not my thing. I've never really been like the kind of person that plays like, I guess town builder games is kind of similar to base builder games that the Pal World is. I've never really been interested in that. Hang on, why is it not popping? Pop up, please.
2 fucking years, baby.
Okay, why didn't Twitch pop up? Anyway, since Twitch is not, I'm gonna do it. Do 2 fucking years. Hi, Pecunia. Hi, thanks for 24 months. Wait. Did you just subscribe 6 months in advance? Am I reading that right? Hi, Solaris. Hi. How's it going? Did you actually just subscribe 6 months in advance? Answer the question. I'm not gonna answer your question until you answer mine. I always sub 6 months at a time. I tend to do that too, but I don't really have that many people that I'm sub to right now. I think the only person I'm sub to is I'm at a tier 3, and I don't necessarily want to do 6 months in a row at tier 3 because that's $25. Just imagine doing that 6 months in advance. That's about $150 that you have to do in advance. Obviously there is a discount for doing it in advance, but I'm still not in the market to pay, you know, $130 or whatever it is every 6 months. I'd rather do 25 a month because it feels nicer. It's the same thing as, like, imagine if this is like something that people post on Twitter all the time. If you have a game that's $5, people think it's too expensive. You make it $3.99, it's basically free. They're gonna fucking buy it. $1 difference, $1.01 in this case, and people will fucking buy it. That's how I feel about tier 3 subbing in advance, especially. Anyway, also, hi Red, hi. I think Red is my longest sub, so Pecunia, I'm sorry, you are not yet the longest. I'm one of the 3 that do. Ooh, doing better than that. I'm here. Nuh-uh, liar. I'm the worst streamer in the world. Everybody knows that. There's the reason I haven't exploded like everybody on Twitter saying you should do if you're following the algorithm correctly. Yeah, because I'm the worst ever. Is the pity working? I don't think the pity's working, guys. Oh my god. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I talked about Power World, not really interested. Let my post, I do my best. Yeah, not interested in Power World, just not my style of game. I recently got my V cards in, like the if you guys remember, when the newest set, season 3 I think it's called, if I remember, they go by seasons. When season 3 came out, I purchased what's the word, their pre-built decks, which is like a way for you to try to get your friends into the game because it has chaos and a light set. So I recently got that in, So it means eventually, once the weather cools down more consistently than it has now, I'll probably do an entire week of trading card games, 1 week of TCG. Not like a full week, but you know, like a stream week, which for me is 3 days. Because I have Pokemon TCG to open, I have White Shores to open, and I also have to learn both Pokemon TCG and V card. I probably know how to play Pokemon TCG because I play Pokemon TCG Pocket. It's not exactly the same because you don't draw energy cards, you only like, what's the word, generate it. So it's fundamentally different, but I'm assuming the skills translate pretty well, and that's just my assumption. So there's a good chance I'm just like, oh shit, I got this, okay, cool, we're good. But that same time, I think what I'll do one of the weeks is literally just show off my card collection. Maybe is what I'll do, because I have an entire binder literally filled with Digimon cards. Because I was when the new set was announced, like the new game, the re-release, I guess, the reboot, I guess is the better word, was announced a couple years ago, like 2021. I decided, like, I'm gonna be a collector of the cards, and I have a fuck ton of them. Yeah, so it'll be cool to show that off. But anyway, we're done for now. I think we're done yapping for now. We're about to get gaming, as the Mario World credits end. This week, if you guys saw the schedule, we're going back to Digimon today. I did do a tiny bit off stream in between the last time I played and today, and by a little bit I mean like, I think like an hour's worth only. If there's a way for me to recap specifically what happened, I will. I know what happened and I can tell you guys what happened, but I'm gonna make sure that I check like the theater I think they have, where you can potentially check previous like cutscenes and stuff. And then tomorrow is retro again, and I have 2 games in mind that I might play. The first is going to be either The Legend of Zelda OG, just because I have not played that game in 20 years maybe. Good evening, Miss Dragon. Hi Ruby, thanks for the art again, very very sexy. The reason I don't exactly know the number is because I played The Legend of Zelda OG and Zelda 2. This is gonna be a throwback. If you guys know this game, good on you, you're just as old as I am. If you don't worry, these things used to exist and pretty soon they will never exist anymore. Sorry, my brother, I was too young. My brother pre-ordered what game was it? It was one of 2 games and I don't remember the answer. I believe this was a pre-order for the Wind Waker. I believe this was a pre-order for the Wind Waker, because we've pre-ordered every single Zelda game ever. Like, we pre-ordered most of our games when we were younger, just because back in the day the pre-order bonuses were fucking lit. These days the pre-order bonuses, hey, you get you get a skin, you get like 10 training material if it's a JRPG, you get early access to a character or something if it's like an online game. Like, no, but back in the day, if you pre-ordered a game, you got a guide, you got a fucking poster, you got like various different what's the word, previews, I guess. So when we pre-ordered the Wind Waker, one thing they gave us as we purchased the pre-order, this wasn't like we got it as we picked up the game, because they gave you 2 different bonuses for this game. First of all, when you pre-ordered Wind Waker, when it came out 23 years ago, it came bundled with the official Nintendo collector's guide, not the Prima guide, I'm pretty sure. I think it was the official collector's guide. And it also came with an early purchase bonus of a Nintendo GameCube disc titled The Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition. I believe that's the one that it was. I could be mistaken here. I can just Google this to find out if I'm right or not. Give me a second. I'm actually gonna find out. That way I don't give you misinformation. Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition. Oh, okay, never mind. This. Okay, you got it. Okay, I mixed it up. So, the Collector's Edition that I'm mentioning right now was a pre-order bonus / early purchase bonus for the Nintendo GameCube. So if you bought a GameCube early, they gave you this disc. What I'm thinking of for the Wind Waker was Legend of Zelda plus Master Quest. I think that's what it was. Anyway, so what the Legend of Zelda Collector Edition does is it includes Legend of Zelda 1, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, I believe, and a 20-minute demo of Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker. Alongside, I think it's like 10 to 15 movie trailers or like movie style trailers for various games that are coming out for the Nintendo GameCube. So it was like there's an F-Zero GX trailer, there's a Metroid Prime trailer, there was an Animal Crossing trailer, I think there was a Pikmin trailer. Like there was a lot of really cool trailers in this. Like it was just to get you hyped up. Hang on, I'm trying to find out if I'm right. Hang on. Yes, I was right. Yeah, so it's the Master Quest disc that came out specifically with Wind Waker pre-order bonuses. So I was just mixing the two up. Anyway, so yeah, so that's when I played OG Zelda 1. Is just when I got my GameCube, which was on release. I forget when, 2002, I think it is. Maybe 2001, I forget. It was fucking cool. So I haven't played that game in 20 years. So anyway, all I was saying was tomorrow, Thursday, is either going to be that or it'll be a game I've never played before, which I'm thinking, I had a thought too, I forgot it. What would it be? That's what I was thinking. Mega Man X. So it'll be one of those two games. Finish watching Masters of the Universe. Wait, they have like an Amazon plug in the movie itself? Like, not like an ad, like it's in the movie itself. Oh my god, there was art in our way. No way, of course. No way, indeed. Kinda, yeah, okay. I might watch it. I kind of want to watch. I wanted to watch Masters of the Universe, and it's good to know that it's out on Amazon Prime Video. Oh, anyway, that's the longest I fucking yap. 30 fucking minutes. Good lord, I'm the yappening today. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know if you guys want to hear my voice for that fucking long. Good lord. Anyway, let's get the gaming. Shut up, Chivarium Mario Kart World. What do we do? We do these. We do these. I need to turn on my controller. Oh, it released today. Ooh, that's cool. They're lagged. I have to reset this. It looks like a half second of like audio lag is what I'm trying to say. Okay. Okay, I might watch that either tonight or tomorrow. Neat. Okay, so again, I have played this game a tiny bit since the last time I streamed it. I think it's this one I want to do. There's one that's ahead, but I actually want to keep that away. Okay, so that's not my girl, by the way. That's her partner. What's her name again? Asuna. Yeah, Asuna now has Belle Starmon as like a partner, not a partner, but I think it is a partner. I think she had a Devimon and it turned into a Belle Starmon. Anyway, where's my team? Let me show you guys my team. I didn't even remember what I have. So I got Lilymon, I got Flaremon, Mega Seedramon, Orochimon, Saurajimon. Nothing really changed. Aegismon. So I did a little bit of the story, and Aegismon learns 2 new transformations just through the story, and it comes in the form of these things. So you go like this. You can turn red if you put this on, or you can turn blue with blue steel, and it makes him obviously a different type. I think it makes him metal instead of lightning. Or you can go green, which is what I have because it allows him to self-heal. And he becomes a plant type. But anyway. Yeah, so he got a new transformation, which is cool. What else? Can I Digivolve anybody? Oh, you guys. Yeah, I got a Magna Garurumon because I did one of those, like, what's the word? Like, time-space dilations or whatever. And he can just transform into gun or not gun form. I'm not using him because I don't really care. But, yeah, it's cool. What do I have a fucking dude for? Okay, anyway. Yeah, so we're just going through the story now. Can I check previous details? Where's my nearest? Did I check the mapping? And there we go. Where's the theater at here? Wait, this guy's a fucking gun, by the way. He's awesome. So yeah, oh my god, I need to go to the fucking in-between theater, but where is it? I think you can go over here and get better. Anyway, do tell me how the audio is. Audio should be okay. Marukimon is still sick. All of his comrades still want to go to war because they're like, hey, they attacked us first, so let's go fucking ruin their fucking day. And Marukimon's like, nuh-uh, you guys can't do that. And they go, why not? And he's like, because we're better than them. And then he's getting sick. So then people are like, hey, if he fucking dies, we're just gonna go kill the humans because it's the humans that killed Marukimon because he's poisoned right now. Or no, I don't think he's poisoned. He's injured. He's critically injured and there's no healing Digimon around. Oh, that's good. Thank you, Zalaris also. Goddamn, 85 streak. Okay. Is there anything I can do to watch previous things? I think this is just DLC, if I recall. Yeah, this is DLC, by the way. I think I bought the DLC. What's this? Oh yeah, no, shut up. Yeah, so this is just like DLC, which is I think this is like XP grinding. This is probably like money grinding, and I'm assuming that's like item grinding or something. But I didn't buy it yet because it wasn't out. But anyway, hope you guys have been having a good week. For those of you that are dealing with heat, hopefully you're okay. It rained very randomly today for like 2 hours, and then it turned like 85 degrees. All right, can I watch previous cutscenes? I cannot. Can I? Maybe? Can I sit down? Nothing here? Yeah, literally nothing here I can interact with. Damn it. Anyway, so let me make sure I remember what's going on. I need to look up here because like the clock has my comrades. Okay, so in this game, right, the whole point of the game is time travel, right? So after a certain point, we've started becoming essentially not time travelers, but time hoppers, I guess. And we have started looking for essentially like the 12 sages, if you want to think of it that way, or the 12 wise men, I don't know what you want to call it. So we have Bacchusmon, which is the one here directly above me. We have Neptunemon, which was a Divermon, if you guys remember back when we were in the sea. And Venusmon, which if you guys forget her, she's fucking hot. I might have her in my Digivice. Hang on. Because I fought alongside her, so maybe I might have her. Maybe not. Well, there's a chance. There's some megas around here. Yeah. Wrong button. I pressed the wrong button. But yeah, Venusmon just sexy. And that was the Shellmon that we were helping out way back in the day. This is, if you guys notice the date, this was back in January. So basically what happened was Neptunemon became the new king of the sea, intent on destroying the good Digimon, and Venusmon became the healer. So what ended up happening was Venusmon was trying to court favor with Neptunemon by offering him a drink, like a very popular like Digimon or some shit. What ended up happening was she didn't know, Venusmon did not know that Neptunemon was the Divermon that Shellmon helped heal, that also helped us in battle, you know, 8 years ago or whatever the time travel difference is. So we went to go deliver the wine and then came back to her and was like, hey, by the way, this was Divermon. And she's like, hang on, where's my expression? Oh no, what have I done? Because the wine turns out to be poisoned. So Neptunemon dies, and then we have to go back in time again and essentially tell her, you fucking idiot, don't fucking do this. And then we have a battle and they end up being our friends. So now they're basically one of, you know, 2 more sages for us. And I believe that's the last thing I did in the story. Because Mirukimon got hurt, he collapsed, so we came back to the human world, and we were told we have to go find a healer Digimon, which the healer Digimon was supposed to be Venusmon. What the hell is this? I never picked this up. Anime. Sister May Steam, he's Playtime Stranger, trying to get Dynasmon. Ooh, looks cool. Which one's Dynasmon? I know it's a mega. Is that a bird? Am I thinking of a bird? Am I right here? Or is Dynasmon is not one of the 12 lords, is he? One of the Knights of the Round, I guess, to think about it. So yeah. So now we're headed to the lab. I forget why we're going to the lab. Hang on, let me try to talk to someone else. What did I get to say? Oh yeah, we found out that if I recall, the last thing that happened in this game is we found out that I forgot what the group's name. I think he is a real knight, by the way. Sounds about right. The group that's like the anti-Digimon brigade or whatever, right? The fucking secret service that's trying to eradicate all Digimon. They're creating a weapon that is going to kill all Digimon. So we are trying to go stop that. And I believe this could be a spoiler because I did go back in time in terms of my save. You saw I went like 15 minutes back in time because I wanted to save that part. I believe we just learned that. I believe. What's our partner's name? Inori. Inori's dad is a part of this. So we're gonna go try to get him to help us to, you know, not fucking kill all Digimon in existence. We're counting on you. Please stop my former colleagues from making a terrible mistake. Yeah, they're trying to kill all fucking Digimon. Oh, we're just here. We found like a back door or something. Okay. Oh, that looks like a Pikarimon. Oh wait, that's not a Pikarimon. It's like a fucking Titan, like Attack on Titan. I mean. All right. So now, I'm assuming something big's gonna happen. That's why I stopped it.
Dad!
Like that's why I stopped playing last time because I'm like, oh, this is something big. I'm gonna save this shit for stream.
Inori, Is that you?
It is Dad. I was right.
Why would you make something like this?
Is the game loud, or is it okay? Because it seems loud in my ear.
I can't believe my eyes.
Talk again, please, game.
There's so much
It's
I
a
want to
little
tell
loud.
you, but
Let me turn it down.
I need you to explain first. Dad, what in the world are you trying to do?
Let's go right about
Inori,
here.
come here.
You always hated your public safety work.
Also,
So
I
this
do want to say
doesn't
the
make
English
sense.
voice acting in this
Tell
game is
me
really
why.
good.
I thought you...
Oh. I'm back. Oh, I pressed the number 0. Hang on. It's gone. Anyway, sorry about that. I had a knock on my door and I got asked to help do something. So I had to. So yeah, I got a phone call, spam first of all. Then I got a knock on my door and I had to help. I just had to help outside somewhere. And we're all good. Sorry about that, guys. If you guys left, bye. If you guys are back, hi. Nora, hello. You're hi. Hello. Yeah, as Solara said. Hi, how you doing? Thank you for continuing the gift sub. We kind of just stopped in the middle of a very tense scene. These guys have been staring each other down on my screen for like, you know, the whole time. Oh, thank you, Ruby. Sorry about that. Again, how long did it take me? 15 minutes. Okay, that's a you know, pretty normal-ish break time. But besides that, sorry. I always hate getting interrupted midstream because it kind of just kills my momentum, if that makes sense. So I kind of gotta get back in it. Okay, so let's see what they're gonna do. Inori's pleaded to her dad to not activate the weapon, and let's see what he does.
Apprehend the intruders.
Oh, he doesn't like us.
What? Dad!
Sneezing.
Suspend the experiment. Time for a change of plans.
Our schedule can't handle delays like that. The operation to eliminate all the Digimon around Shinjuku is tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes?
Quite the opposite. We're going to push forward to the execution phase.
Shit.
There doesn't seem to be time to spare anymore.
Okay.
Some odd readings were confirmed above the Tokyo Metropolitan Government Building.
That
just
Metropolitan Building's getting
They're
a lot of shit
identical
happening to
those
it.
from 8 years
Yeah.
ago, when the Digimon hordes appeared. If that thing opens, then
Oh,
we'll
that's
be
right. I went
swarmed
back in
by
time, then
Digimon.
forward in time. That's what happened.
Oh no. Do they mean a gate? That reminds me. The Titans said they were launching an all-out attack.
If things keep going this way...
It'll be the end of the world.
Head to the skies above the government building and engage the enemy.
Ooh, my shoulder.
Don't let the tragedy of 8 years ago happen again. Make sure they can't take anything more that's dear to us. That's what we've given everything to achieve.
Roger. Over and out. Captain Karemi, this is for you.
Karemi died, I forgot. Or injured, one of the two.
I realized something when you vanished. I realized that life has done nothing but take. And you know who's behind all of it? Digimon. When protecting what matters,
Back? Hi, back.
sometimes you have to get your hands dirty.
How you doing?
Dad!
Attack! Eliminate any potential hostiles that appear on the roof.
Right until you get some nice. Okay. The tie-in is activating. Everybody, be careful. Where's Eren Yeager? What's her name? Misaka? Where's Misaka? Or Mikasa?
Inori!
Where's Mikasa?
You heard him. Go on ahead. I'll be fine. I'll get through to my dad and be right behind you. I promise.
This is so unserious with the Gatomon onesie on, by the way. Wait. We're out, baby. While evading public safety force, being separated from Digimon, somehow you managed to escape to the surface. Be careful. Your current coordinates are near ground level and inside the wall. It might be the Digimon district. Operator's the guy, protagonist. Yo, it's this cutscene again from like the very beginning of the game, if you guys remember, like 9 months ago. What's up with those? Oh, that's a manhole. I was like, what's up with the giant titty shadows on the ground?
Don't you
Nope.
recognize
Sorry.
that Digimon just now? It's like we're reliving the events of that day.
Yep. I remember. Yep. First time we met Inori.
That public safety weapon is also what caused the Shinjuku Inferno. It seems this timeline is also on the path to ruin.
Ooh, I like this song though.
We're out of time. We have no choice but to go with what we feel to be the best option at our disposal.
Oh my god, I forgot something. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I forgot something. I forgot a very crucial part of the recap of what we're doing in this game. So, as I mentioned, we're trying to fix the world by gathering the, like, essentially 12 companions. I don't think it's 12, but it's like companions, right? Which was Neptunemon, Venusmon, and Bacchusmon, I think his name is, the drunk guy. Essentially, as we were playing through that, you know, going back in time and fixing everything, Audimus, I think is what our organization is named. They were starting to realize that the person that is responsible for all of the time anomalies is Digimon. So Digimon becomes deemed like a class S threat or something, like the highest level threat they have. And essentially the last thing we were told before this cutscene was, if need be, you need to kill Digimon. So, context of this is there's no longer an option. We have to kill him.
Even if sacrifices have to be made, that means erasing the most plausible source of the anomaly. Go at once and eliminate Digimon, along with Inori Misono.
As they just spelled out. Just give us a little more time, please.
Do you have any idea what you're saying? Have you forgotten the very fate of the world is at stake?
I haven't.
Oh boy. Well, if my ground operative refuses to take action, there's not much I can do on my end. I predicted you wouldn't comply with this order. After all, I've known you for quite some time now.
Wow.
Fine then. We're in this through thick and thin, aren't we? Of course, we won't go unpunished for disobeying orders from above.
I think my buddy's gonna fucking get killed in the
I'm
future.
with you to the end. I'll buy us as much time as I can. Just remember, there's a limit to how much I can do. For now, do whatever it takes to prevent the Shinjuku Inferno. We can worry about what comes after when the time comes.
Yes, ma'am. Or sir. Apologies. I'm the ma'am. Alright. I don't think I have any of my buddies, so I have to avoid all fights. Hey, Chumon, what's up?
There you are! I have an urgent message. Just promise y'all stay calm while you listen. We got a report that, after venturing into the digital world, Marukimon died after a fierce battle.
Well, looks like his injuries were unable to be healed in time, at least. That's a crazy thing to have the ad pop up on, because people just missed a fucking bombshell. I'll wait on the ads though. Oh my god, the sub-apocalypse is happening for me. We're slowly dropping sub numbers. That's fine, I expected it. Everybody expects it when they do a subathon. Ah! Dropped my phone. Hi Nora. Hello. Sorry I was gone when you showed up. Hopefully you're doing okay. Hopefully you're being safe while you're being high. Anyway, Marukimon
Death by
died.
poison looming, and our forces in central town dwindling. He sacrificed himself so his allies could escape.
Marukimon is dead. I'm assuming his comrades are gonna start attacking because they were only being held back by him.
This allowed us to seal the rebellion village gate, but I doubt the enemy will give up on invading the human world. They'll likely seek another gate, but we'll fight to the bitter end with everyone who's left. This is about revenge.
Revenge! Alright. That sucks.
Inori Misono's father just said a gate is opening above the Tokyo Metropolitan Government Building.
Okay.
That may be the Titan's point of entry. The forces that defeated Marukimon are on the warpath.
Okay.
We're also detecting indicators of
Oh, why are my
space-time
wings on again?
disturbance.
Shit.
At this rate, it's going to trigger the Inferno.
Sorry about that. It's a big ass Scorpio? What is that? I think that is a Scorpio. No, Scorpiomon's a water-based Digimon, right? That's not a Scorpiomon. That's a giant ass Cyclonemon. That's what that is. Digimon District. Used by public safety. Hang on. To continue Digimon, large enemy presence like to the head, find another route. The road you time travel to is decidedly full of more hostile Digimon than the world I know.
Rinkum Smugom gets Rinkum Smug on Twitch.
Hi, yes it is. This part of the game, you're just right at the start of the game, essentially, right? So, essentially, we've done so much time travel in this game that we are now back at the beginning of the game. Or at least at like the point where the Shinjuku Inferno happens, which was what's happening at the beginning of the game. And as they're saying in the text, is time traveling the cause? There's more Digimon, so he's assuming that by time traveling and messing with the flow of time, we essentially made this future more dangerous than the future that we were trying to prevent already. For the deviation for the rules of time and space, we're bringing in new Digimon. Who is that back there? Brachiousmon? No, not Brachiousmon. Something Draymon. The future team is correct, and their hostile nature is akin to antibodies and an overacting immune system. It would make sense, wouldn't it? Oh yeah, so again, I need to explain things just because it's been 6 months. The research team essentially has a theory that the Digimon, like the Titans or some of the Digimon, are essentially antibodies for the digital world. And if one side becomes too powerful, they're essentially helping purge the world and reboot it, essentially, if it becomes too corrupt in one way or another. So, like, if things aren't in balance, then the antibodies get released. And because we're time traveling, the digital world has decided, hey, this thing that is messing up with reality, this thing is dangerous. So it's releasing stronger and stronger Digimon to try and defeat Agriomon in particular. Not us, but Agriomon. After all, a being that has traveled through time is nothing more than a foreign substance to that world. Exactly. So we are the problem by creating time anomalies that the world doesn't know what to deal with. And hostile Digimon gathered in the Shinjuku underground. That's the Oboromon. I just noticed it. Why is it in fucking auto? Yeah, I thought it was because of the egg that ended up there, but what if the Digimon appeared there to get rid of the egg? Like antibodies and emitting a foreign substance. A time traveler. I don't have evidence, but if I'm right, it would make sense that hostile Digimon increase with each time travel. Are you curious as to why I have such a wild theory? It's because Automas once tried to eliminate Digimon with time traveling abilities the exact same way, like a foreign substance. There are numerous readings of hostile Digimon head. Find another route. Dioboromon is kind of fucking dangerous. Is that's Chaos Dramon, I think it is called, right? The red one with like corrupted bits on his like legs.
I understand why you'd feel shaken, but you need to stay calm. What we need to look out for above all else is a space-time disturbance. The anomaly that erased your adoptive father, Dr. Yuki, from existence.
Space-time disturbance.
Triggers a rash of such disturbances across
or
the planet.
STD for short.
They lead directly to the end of the world. Space-time disturbances are a constant threat here in my timeline. Get caught in one, and you'll never make it home.
Okay. It's like a wormhole.
Hello down there.
I think that's Pegasusmon's voice, right? Oh, it's Bergermon. I guess it could have been Pegasusmon.
Are you all right? You'll be squashed flat if you get
Oh, it's
stepped
Digimon.
on. We'll give you a lift. Hang on
Thanks,
tight.
guys.
Here we go.
Thank you. God, dude, why are we not on fire from hanging onto Bergermon? Infermon's up there on the top left.
This is bad. I'm already detecting a space-time disturbance.
Alright, shit's about to get real is my guess. Oh, we have a cutscene right now. Okay. Anybody get hurt there? Uh oh. Exodia? Exodia! Obliterate! Sorry, it just looks like fucking Exodia. Holy shit! Are we time traveling again? Oh. Okay, I thought we were gonna fight something, but it looks like we just fucking got Exodia'd.
This place.
No.
Uh-oh.
Being sucked in.
Donkey Kong Bonanza's happening, guys. Uh-oh. He's gonna turn Skull Greymon level if that makes any sense to you guys. What the fuck? Yo! Uh-oh. I'm being Thanos snapped. I don't know what happened, but he looked cool. Oh. I'm back in the theater. Huh. Okay.
First time here alone, isn't it?
Hi, Mirai.
As for your two friends, it seems they fell into a crack in time and space. You folks call them space-time disturbances. I don't know anyone who's ever escaped from one.
Okay, so how do we save them?
Do you know what the cause of today's tragedy is? There's a point in time where you made the wrong choice.
Wait. I made a wrong choice? Oh shit. I know this is part of the game, but like, what the fuck did I do wrong?
The Akashic Vision will play even if there's only one audience member. Go see with your own two eyes.
Okay, I guess the theater's gonna play something that tells me what the hell I did wrong. What did I do wrong?
Marukimon, a warrior with
shit. Is it
unparalleled
because
swiftness
Marukimon
and
died?
strength. Marukimon's valor drew Digimon to him, and they eventually formed
like
a
these
small
animations, too.
village over time. Before long, this village evolved into a large city with vibrant, bustling streets. But even this lively and peaceful city was not safe from the conflict with the Titans. Marukimon rallied the village Digimon and fought valiantly, but was struck by a poisoned arrow while protecting a resident. The wounded Marukimon put up a desperate resistance. But his strength
power went out? Hi,
finally
Tactical.
failed
Sorry
in
about
the
that.
face of the advancing enemy horde. And the Titans conquered the city.
What did I fuck up then?
Its citizens, burned out of house and home, were
Hard-hit
scattered
power then?
aimlessly
Ooh.
to the winds. Marukimon and his allies took flight, eventually finding their way to the human world.
Now do I have to go back to the beginning
they
of the game
established
again?
a new base where they awaited the opportunity to retake
Is that
their
what's
former
happening?
home.
Because it sounds like essentially the beginning of the
However,
game is where I fucked
toxins
up.
from the poisoned arrow continued to eat away at Marukimon's body, weakening him before the upcoming battle. Mustering his last bit of strength, Marukimon and his allies attempted to storm their lost home, only to be defeated at the hands of the enemy's formidable forces. As the poison sapped away his strength, Marukimon, resigned to his
That's
death,
blood.
sacrificed himself so his allies could flee. there he fell. The dream of reclaiming the city, lost along with their leader's life.
Okay. So what does that mean? Mireille, I need you to tell me. What does that mean? The God of Speed's wish. Okay. Agent skills? Ooh, what do we got? How many points do I have? 20? I'm fucking jack shit. What can I buy? Ooh, I can buy you. I don't care. I can buy you, I don't care. Nothing. And ooh, I can buy you. What's these? Ooh, give me this. Now, does that mean anything you can digivolve? No, nobody can digivolve. Wait, I have a bunch of yellow numbers. I should digivolve to reset these guys. Mummymon, get your ass down to Doberman. I'm trying to do a different Digimon than the line, if you notice the line up top. You can turn into this, but I need a lot. I have a lot of attack. What's my speed at? Oh, I just need to wait. This one I probably won't be able to turn into, but no matter what, I'll be able to turn into this guy, whoever that is. You get to digivolve into Growlmon because we have Zubaigermon. Then you can turn into War Growlmon again, but I think I'll turn you into Doru Greymon. Andromon can fuck right off. Oh, I just need to be a fucking level. I'm stupid! These guys can digivolve. I just need a higher agent rank. I'm stupid! Get back to War Growlmon. Because I guarantee you I can turn into Gallonmon. Yeah. I just need the agent rank. That's my problem. You as well? Yep, everybody. That's why I'm not digivolving anybody. Because they can all digivolve. I'm just a little stupid on the inside. Forgive me for drinking dumb bitch juice today. I'll hold on to Doberman and turn into this guy. We'll just go. So we're gonna leave. Where are we? Where are we? Because we were in literally nowhere. So where are we now? What the fuck? Oh, back here. So how far back are we? Wait. Venusmon just sent me a message. Where's my Digiline? I've located the fruit of Carpus Hule. Heading that way now. Oh, she was looking for a fruit to heal his poison. So we need to talk to Marukimon and have him fucking stay. Just fucking stay.
That's not right.
Seems like you traveled through time again, but something's off this time. Adriamon isn't with you. No sign of Nora either. No doubt she was swallowed up by the space-time distortion and Adriamon went in after her. While their safety is a concern, bigger issue is that you traveled through time without Adriamon present. Means I can't do it again, is my assumption. Now that I think back on it, you were alone doing your first time travel as well. It just maybe be that we've made a big error in judgment. Maybe I'm the anomaly. Lord Marukimon is prepared to take the field too. You think you can even fight in that state? What, Nevada? Marukimon's upcoming defeat is what leads to the Titans invading the human world. While the Marukimon are healthy, it just might be enough to change the outcome of the battle. What about Venusmon, the Digimon working to remedy the poison? Any word on her progress? She literally just sent me a message. Hi, buddy.
In other words,
Marukimon being alive is solid proof that you've traveled through time. Yeah, I mean, we kind of figured. We need to try again to keep the Shinjuku Inferno from happening. This time I will get to the truth. See the same knowledge previously and able to glean new information on its origin. I like the word glean because it's like, it's not a very common word. Titans appear in the sky above the government building, then Rukimon's remaining forces engage them. Once public safety and their weapons get involved, we have a three-way fight. If only knew what the giant arm was, it's fucking Exodia! Perhaps the gates opening and the shockwaves of the battle cause some kind of effect and then a massive disturbance. And that's how the Shinjuku Inferno will fold. So if we stop the Titan invasion of our world, we stop the worst of it. In other words, if Marukimon can defeat the Titans and survive, Yak may change. Hello, let's go Yeetus Fetus. Yo! Are you a Kingdom Hearts fan by any fan? Yeetus Vanitas at all? Anyway, hi. No worry about the comics with the Crusader history this time. We may have been wrong about everything after all.
You see.
Reason being that in the first place, these jumps through time are... Never played Kingdom Hearts? Unfortunate. Oh. We've lost connection. I see you are alone. Is something wrong? Are you here to speak with me? Hi, Marukimon. The enemy is concentrating their forces on Central Town. Our own units have already engaged them. Anyway, what brings you here? Digimon? Or what? I have a different favor to ask you. We find ourselves beset by another crisis. You're going to die out there. Digimon? Hell yeah. I stopped playing this game for like 6 months because I got busy with something else. So I'm a little lost on what I'm doing, but I do remember essentially what the story is. No, what? How do you know this? I'm from the future, bitch. Technically, I'm from the past, but I'm from both. Time travel? The world will end? It's hardly the time for insipid jokes. So that's the stare of someone who is like, you think I'm playing, bitch? The look on your face. You are not joking, are you? Or rather, what would you have me do? My comrades are already fighting in Central Town. Can I go in your way? If only there was some way to leave the poison get away in my body. Please give me some time to think. Yeah, I have somebody coming, dude. Chill. Was it for my promise her preparing that we are going to delay our departure? Thank you. What? Was that so hard to do?
Thank goodness we made it in time.
Look at her. It's the queen.
Within the Gear Forest,
oh, booty.
I found this growing from the sapling under which Sirenmon slumbers.
Sorry.
The fruit of Carpos Hule. With this, we can cleanse the poison from Marukimon's body. As long as I have the ingredients, compounding it will not take long. I can only hope it will be ready in time.
Nobody worry about the screenshot I took about her ass. Listen, it's fine.
This cannot be.
Excuse me?
My body feels so light. The antidote may be working. And to think I nearly had given up hope. You have my heartfelt gratitude, O time-traversing hero.
You're welcome.
A ray of hope after days of quiet suffering. If we fail to grasp this chance, this time our future is truly lost.
Truly.
We go
truly
forth to
outrageous.
reclaim our pride, our soul. Now to our home. Onward.
I like his voice. Yes! So fuck these people up. Who's the god of speed, though? Would it be like, All Force Vidramon, maybe? Because that's usually who, like, speed is supposed to be. Obviously, nobody tell me if you know. I'm just curious, like, who the god of speed is supposed to be. We have arrived. Wait, how many points do I need for my agent skill to level up, by the way? Or agent level, I mean. I need 400 points. Jesus Christ, I'm not even close. God, dude, they gatekeep megas for so fucking long in this game. Toyagumon against Goburimon or Shamanmon. Real, I can see it because like I've used essentially all of my points.
and turn them back.
I've missed
We
a
will
couple
not let them take a
missions
single
back in the
step into
day,
the human
but that was not
world.
400 points worth.
If this
I
prevents
think
world
I'll take
destruction,
Vegas. Yeah.
then all the more reason to stake my all in holding the front. I owe you that much.
Because it feels like ultimates are relatively quick,
better
because
not
getting to agent
blink
level 3 is
from
pretty
now
quick.
on. It could all be over in a flash the moment you close your
But
eyes.
it feels like 3 to 7 is a little too long.
The enemy shall learn what it truly means.
Oh,
to
he's the
face
god of
down
speed.
the god of speed.
I guess that makes sense that he would be the god of speed.
Ah, reinforcements. You have our thanks.
I have to fight
now
the
please lend us your
Boltmon?
strength.
No, that's not Boltmon. Volcanomon, I believe.
Preparations complete.
What are you again? Your data, okay. I already forget. I forget types already. Go, Orochimaru!
I'm counting on you.
I don't know what you were weak to, so I'm gonna assume it's steel. Why do I assume it's steel? It's actually not. It's the opposite. But it should have been at least 2 times damage. Game can expect you outside missions. That feels right. I feel like I didn't miss anything, but at the same time, like, I don't know what I was supposed to do sometimes, because there's sometimes where I just couldn't do the missions, or it felt like I couldn't do them anyway. Are you weak to darkness? You shouldn't be, isn't it, I guess? Yeah, neutral. Ow. I'm gonna assume Earth, actually, surprisingly. I was wrong, but he's dead. I'm curious, how many did I miss? Oh, 7 that are not done? Yeah. There's some that legitimately I just couldn't do. Like, the game was like, oh, keep going, please keep going through the story and you'll get them. Some of them I just forgot to do because they were like back in Shibuya or whatever we were at. Like, I think this one was back when we were in Shibuya. Between Worlds, I think we were back where we were before we went to the digital world. Like, this one, it just doesn't exist yet. It's the Omni Carnival. This thing is like DLC, I'm pretty sure these two are. So like I've missed these two essentially, which is 90 anomaly points, which is not bad, but I just can't do this one. I've done the entirety of the Omni Carnival, I just can't do the last part. So like I'm good, and these two are DLC, so don't worry about that. It's just these two that I actually end up missing. I don't know, I forget how I missed them, but I just missed them, unfortunately.
Much appreciated. Everyone.
But yeah, like when I get a side quest, or like they tell me a side quest exists, I try to do them like ASAP, just because I do know that like I realized that agent points were really valuable. I figured Omni Carnival was not to the end of the game, because it, based on the name Omni Carnival, I'm probably going to be fighting Royal Knights, and I have not fought a single Royal Knight here.
Time to go down.
Yet, at least. So like, yeah, I technically really haven't missed much. I missed 2. It is 90 points and I need 400, so I've missed, you know, a quarter of what I needed, but I will still not be close. Like, technically speaking. But yeah, I'm assuming, again, nobody told me. I'm assuming eventually we get the ability to travel through time freely, which means I can do all the side quests that I missed. Don't tell me. If you tell me, I swear to God, I'm gonna time you out.
Preparations complete.
Is he Data also? Oh, he's Virus.
I'm counting on you.
Anybody spoils any game that I play, I will slap the shit out of you. I never want to be spoiled. Unless I literally put it on the stream like, hey, you can help me, I don't give a shit.
Please?
Crimson
Bonk. He looks like he'd be weak to wind. Oh god! Oh, I'm glad he took him, not me. Digimon. Wow, nice damage. Nice damage, losers. Fuck, man. Jesus Christ, you guys are weaklings. Do this shit myself. Assuming you're weak to wind. I was wrong. Wait, you went twice in a row? Okay. Machine dragon, so I guess electric potentially. I'll try metal. I'm assuming this is gonna be resistant. Yeah, figured. Fuck you.
Take this.
Take this shit. Fuck you. Gun. For her neutral special. The agent wields a gun. Oh god. Oh!
It's showtime! Animal meal!
That's actually good for me. Yeah. Because now my companions actually deal bonus damage to him. That's really funny. So now I bring out my vaccine. Or sorry, my datas.
Please?
That's really silly. He character reversaled himself. Oh, he resists. He resists that. Okay. Again, I'm assuming it's lightning because he's a machine dragon, as it says. So this, I'm assuming, is gonna do 3 times damage. I was wrong. What the fuck is he weak to? Oh, it was. Wait, the reversal ended. That's why. I'm a little stupid. I'm a time. Oh wait, no, it's still there. They literally see on his body. Oh, does it just? Oh wait, does that reverse everything, not just the attribute triangle? Wait, is that true? If that's true, then this should work.
I'm counting on you.
It does. Okay, so it reverses everything. I didn't realize. I thought it just flipped around like vaccine virus free, all that stuff. I thought it flipped that. I didn't realize it flipped everything. That's pretty good actually. Break trim on the He's like, this motherfucker's blocking the path. This fat ass is blocking. While we move it, you climb up the ladder. Oh god. What the fuck happened there?
Hey you! Over here!
Hi, Chuman.
Use this ladder. Go around from above.
Mechanical Dragon of Destruction. I actually never watched, if he's been in an anime, I've never watched whichever one he got introduced in. There's a lot of Digimon I have not watched. I never really liked Frontier, or not Frontiers, oh, it is Frontiers. I never really liked Frontiers personally. Like, in terms of Digimon series, I didn't like Frontiers. I don't know why, just the whole humans turning into Digimon was never really my my cup of tea. And I just missed out on watching Applin Monsters, and I haven't watched Beat Break yet. I want to, I just keep forgetting. Fun Beamon, no! Data Squad, yeah. It's Savers. I greatly dislike the fact that they called it Data Squad. And I also greatly dislike the fact that they so very clearly Americanized the anime. Like, I know every Digimon has been Americanized, but like it was a little too egregious in Data Squad / Savers.
ready! Lightning javelin!
Like, here's the thing, right? They Americanized the OG, and I get it. Like, right, they have Tai, they have Ma instead of Yamato, Tai instead of Taichi, Kari instead of Hikari. But it's like, they still have like Sora and Mimi. They didn't change those names. Granted, they are very simple to understand names. Ow. Oh.
Ready to go.
Phenomenal this fine night. You think you're most fun in a world company versus my dragon? Hell yeah, of course. Pleasure to see you too. And fellow Digimon fans, feel free to always tell me your favorite series and which one your least favorite is, because I'm not ashamed to say Frontiers is probably my least favorite. Granted, I know people love it. There's a lot of high praise for it. It's just not my cup of tea. Just the whole concept I never really liked. But at the same time, speaking of Frontiers being, to me, bad because humans turn to Digimon, I also think it's extremely funny.
I'm sorry.
That in Digimon Saver / Data Squad, depending on where you watched it, Damon Masaru literally gets the ability to digivolve his Agumon by punching other Digimon. I think that's really funny. Shaman, go! Also, Digimon Crosswords was weird. The whole concept of like, hey, you can only have one Digimon partner out at a time. Like, they just tried to make it Pokemon, which is, I think, a weird decision. Granted, Shoutmon is fucking sick. Like, Shoutmon Cross 7. Beautiful. The crossover episode where all the previous goggle wearers show up. Oh, beautiful.
It is still too early.
This isn't Cherubimon. What's the purple one called again? I forgot.
What?
Or is it Cherubimon with just like evil mode or some shit?
In order to replace a gear, one must first open the cover of the clock.
Because I know there's a lot of times where like the Digimon is the same but just has a different color and it has a different name.
Even a child knows this truth. And so I say,
Is it just like Cherubimon Black? That's what I figured. I just wasn't sure because I know this is Cherubimon, but Cherubimon is pink. Are you on our side of the enemies? Friend or foe? Also, yeah, Black War Greymon. It's not like a basic bitch answer, but Black War Greymon is fucking cool. But he's also like the edgy Digimon because he's like, why am I alive? What am I doing? Like, yes, he's angsty as hell. It's still fucking cool because War Greymon is one of the coolest fucking Digimon ever, and they just made him fucking evil and black and twisted. It's awesome.
Allow me to test this for myself.
Favorite would be Old Force Digimon. Ooh, I'm trying to think of what my favorites would be. War Greymon's definitely up there. Like, I'm absolutely like a Gen 1er in terms of Digimon, where some of my favorites are legitimately just from the first anime. Like War Greymon's up there. Where Garurumon is up there. Angelomon is up there. Just I think it's silly that a cat turns into a human. That's funny. I like Myotismon. I don't like Venom Myotismon, but like if I was to rank Digimon, I don't actually know what I would decide on. Omnimod Zwart, yeah. Omnimod Zwart defeat, yeah. Oh. Trubo and Device. Oh, okay. That makes sense, I guess, yeah. Virtue of the Device. That makes a lot of sense. Take this gun, bitch.
Are you okay?
Wake up. And we heal, get that aura up. Man, Mega Surgeon was gonna get swapped out, but still.
Please?
Chaosmon, Buffamon, Rage, but that's cool. Yeah. I do think Chaos, am I thinking of Chaos Remon? Or is it just Chaosmon? Is Chaosmon the one that's the final boss of, not the final boss, but like the second to last boss in Digimon World 2?
Crimson Wave of the Beast King! There!
Never played World 2? Ooh, World 2 is fun. It's basically a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, but as a Digimon game. Alphamon's pretty cool, yeah. Uh-oh, he gets to go twice now. I'm thinking of Chaosmon, not Chaos Drummon, right? Let me double check. Let's take a look. Chaosmon. No, that's not the one I'm thinking of. I am thinking of Chaos Drummon. Chaos Drummon is essentially what if Machine Drummon was fucked up and twisted. Excuse me. What's he weak to? I just realized it has to be Saint Knuckle. I'm stupid. Uh-oh. What is that? Disease? Cannot recover SP? I'm fine with it. What is this? Machine Drummon is or Chaos Drummon is improved. Machine Drummon, I can see that. What difficult am I playing on? I actually don't remember. Again, it's been long enough. I just don't fucking remember. I think we just do this first.
Please?
And we'll heal up with somebody else. So I just forget. I forgot if there's a difficulty mode in this game. I'm just playing the game. I forget. It might just be normal mode or something. If it's not hard, your coward material. Hang on. Chaos Ramon is X body form. I don't know that. The only reason I know about Chaos Ramon again is because it's a boss in Digimon World 2, and I had no idea this existed. I'm like, yo, Machine Ramon is fucking cool. This thing looks cool too because it's Machine Ramon but evil and twisted. I need more health than that. I guess I'll use this.
Now.
Because I don't think she'll survive otherwise. I don't know if I'm on hard, I'm not gonna lie. Can you change the difficulty in this game? Machine Drummon is an evil? Yes, he is, but I mean like even more evil and twisted. Like, hang on, let me pull up a fucking picture. Hang on. What the fuck? Yeah, I love these sprites. But anyway, so yes, Machine Drummon is a Dark Master in specifically the OG. Ow, I don't like that fucking effect. But essentially it's Machine Drummon corrupted because like it's like really fucked up. The textures on it are like kind of busted essentially, is what I'm trying to get at. Let me get a picture of him. Like, I don't mean like fucked up and twisted as in like morally. I mean fucked up and twisted like literally. I'm trying to save this photo to let you guys see it. Web page, you serious, motherfucker? Stop saving it as a web p. Oh, this is bullshit. The Digimon. Yeah, he was a final boss in 1, wasn't he? Wasn't the final boss in 1 like a really fucked up like copy of your character? Like he's a fucking wire man. Yeah, I remember Analog Man. That was his fucking name. Digimon games are stupid sometimes, like actually. There you go. Right there. Machine your mom, but evil, fucked up, and twisted. Maybe it's just because he was in Digimon World 2, and Digimon World 2 has some of the worst models in existence of any game I've ever played. But the textures just looked a lot more fucked up in that game. I think it's just because that game has really fucked up textures. Uh-oh, that's really bad. We're all confused.
Thousand fists!
I am terrified. Please get rid of the... Oh, fuck. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Oh, it's not fine because the one dude is behind him. Okay, we're fine. Holy crap. That spray's not good enough. I have to use a medical spray.
Are you okay?
You're the best.
Can I poison him? Usually you can't poison bosses. Let's find out. Nope. Okay, so this boss is all about effects, which I have no protection against right now. We're fine, because I have multi-recovery DX.
Are you okay?
You're the best.
Venomitis one is pretty cool. I don't like him though. He lost the cool vampire thing to be like a fucking kaiju essentially. More medical spray. I go full heal this time because last time I almost died without full healing. Do that. We'll fucking shoot him in the face. Isn't one of the ways the Digidestin beat Venomitismon is by like shooting the fucking like Times Square ball at him, like essentially, like into the little bottom mouth that he has? Oh my god, he missed. Okay, we're good. What if a vampire kaiju? Not unwelcome. We're fighting Megas and I can't turn Mega yet. Malomyotismon. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I remember that one.
I see you have gotten stronger. Joyous news indeed.
Ooh.
I will be waiting for you.
I think it's also really cool how almost every Digimon has like 2 or 3 like final forms, if you want to think of it.
In the place where
Like,
the
not like
laws
Digimon
of
line, just like
time are engraved.
specific Digimon. Like there's one like true form, but there's like multiple actual variations of it. What was that all about? This guy sounds like Xavier Renegade Angel.
I'm intrigued as
That's
well.
a callback. Jesus Christ.
However, for the time being, allow me to simply make this declaration.
I'm learning a little about Digimon that I
This
never
was
really
my-
paid attention to.
No, our dearest wish.
Just because I never really looked at the lore of like a particular
We've reclaimed more
Digimon.
than mere land. We have
Also, I don't know how
restored
people
our
figure this out, by the way.
our very soul.
Where the hell do you learn all this?
Central Town belongs to us.
Like, like
Once
genuinely.
again.
Digimon lore dark areas based all time. Digimon that makes sense. The dark area. I mean the dark realm, the dark zone, the shadow realm. Wait.
Medicine wiped the poison from
Already
Marukimon's
shut up?
body,
Movies
and
on?
strength returned to the fleet-footed warrior. Together, with his trusted allies, Marukimon rose up. It was time to take back their city from the invading forces. The renewed Marukimon put his vaunted speed on full display. Together with his comrades, Marukimon scattered the Titan army and reclaimed their city.
Yep.
Finally back where they belong, Marukimon's people worked tirelessly to restore their broken home.
Marukimon's based off
And
Hermes,
soon
really?
The city was
Makes no
back
sense to me
its
personally.
vibrant self, a haven.
I get it because he's the god of speed, but like
Iliad.
that design does not lead me to leave Hermes. Piximon reminds me more of Hermes because he's got like the wings and shit. But I know he's a fucking pixie. Alright, so that's another one of our comrades. That's fine. Where's the fifth one? I guess Adriamon technically is number 5. It's 5 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that 11?
The Akashic vision activates, even without Aegiomon present.
That means
What
it's
could
us
this
that's doing
mean?
it.
When all the clock's lamps are lit, the truth shall be revealed.
It means I'm the one that's actually has the Akashic vision, not Aegiomon.
7 remain.
Wait,
May
it's
the
7?
higher
Did I
being
miscount?
watch over you, chosen ones.
Did I actually miscount? Looks like there's a video attached to it, okay?
I'm sorry. It looks like this is as far as I can accompany you.
Is he gonna be killed?
Adamus HQ will be swallowed up by a massive space-time disturbance
I
any moment.
was lying. I was kidding. Please don't kill my buddy.
Once that happens, my very existence will be erased. So all I ask is, remember me. Remember that I existed. If I see Dr. Yuki on the road ahead, I'll tell him. Tell him his kid is trying to save the world. I'm glad you and I got to work together. Thank you for everything you've done. I guess that's it. The rest is up to you, Agent.
I was kidding. I was kidding that he was. I thought he was gonna be killed by his own comrades for disobeying orders, but he's just actually fucking dead. Is that actually 7? Hang on. 2, 4, 6. Where's number 7 at? Oh, the middle one must count. Maruki's Mercury. I could see that. Okay. So what now? We have nobody to back us up. We have no Aegiomon. Where does this game go? Whoa, where have you been? You're the star of this show. Help get the city back. Riku wants to come to the tavern. I don't know anything about Frontier and Spirits, so whatever you're telling me. Ancient Wiseman. Sephiroth. Sephiroth's in this game? Sephiroth. Go, 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 I'm here. Hi.
If what you say about seeing the future is true, then it is too early to celebrate.
You're right.
I have word that the human's weapon has not been deployed yet. Most likely due to our success in stopping the Titans.
Yes.
But if what you say is true, This is not a cause for celebration yet. If the Titans intend to invade the human world, it is only a matter of time before they clash with the humans themselves. Plutomon, the leader of the Titans, resides in a location known as the Dark Field. With the bulk of the Titans' forces in Central Town, the Dark Field is apparently only lightly guarded. Now may be our chance to broker peace, but we need to find out what it is the Titans seek.
Okay, so you might just talked about the dark area, which is where we're going. Spoilers, by the way. I'm gonna fucking slap you for that. I'm just teasing, but you know. Oddly pertinent, what you're saying. What does the 20th Steven mean? What? Huh? I'm gonna go to it. The fuck does that mean? The 20th? The fuck? Hang on, I got more North skills to learn too. What's this do? Yeah, cross arts. I don't really care about cross arts, I'm not gonna lie. Because I have the big gun attack. I want to learn stat boosting things actually. Because I still need to level up people, so I need to boost stat skill stuff. Oh wait, this tells you how many of each I have. Okay, so philanthropy is nice, but I only have 9 philanthropy Digimon, so I want to do wisdom, valor, amicability more. XSP. Use the SP cost. Boost the appearance rate. SPI. They ignore stats. Amount of items drop? That's pretty cool. Let's go for defense. Defense is usually a pretty high thing that limits Digivolution. Like I said. Is that Meteormon, right? This technically has to be Meteormon, right? I don't know who that is. Don't tell me, by the way. Nobody told me. But this looks like it's just another Gatsumon, which is Meteormon. Does the Gatsumon line have a Mega? Like, does it look like the same thing as just a Mega? That one you can tell me, because that'd be funny. Galactic Flare. That sounds pretty cool, actually. Or is like Metal Etamon the final of his thing? Probably. It doesn't look like it because it's Metal Etamon or whatever the hell that is. That does not look like a Gatsumon. Trying to turn into that, which is 890 speed. We're almost there. Who do I want to turn you into? Pokemon would be cool. Actually, I do want Pokemon. I want wait, hold on. Do I have Phantomon? Never mind. I want to get a Piedmon, which is here, but I already have one. Okay, so not worry about that. I have my Otismon. Can't worry about that. Sangloopmon, I guess. Yeah, we'll do Sangloopmon. So many Digimon in this game, I don't know where they exist from. So you should be able to Digivolve soon into Matadormon. SPI and speed, it's not gonna happen. I do not have the talent for this, I think. Yeah, I think I might be screwed Digivolving this guy, actually. That's fine. I'll leave him anyway. Dobermon I was gonna wait for. And you just turn into this guy. And then I have to wait on. Okay, where cool is this? Let's go to Shibuya. I just think it's funny. Another mission? Okay. I'll get that one later. I'm just gonna do this one first. I think it's really funny that Gatsumon turned into Icemon, which is just ice Gatsumon but blue, like light blue because it's ice. And then Icemon turned into Meteormon, which is just Gatsumon but tan. And I'm just like, it makes sense why it's the same Digimon, just retextured, because you're essentially making things harder, right? It's a harder material, so it's just a stronger Digimon. You go from rock to ice to meteor, which you might be thinking, wait, how is rock stronger than ice? Well, if it's like a, you know, it's a really thick piece of ice, it doesn't break that easily like a rock could. And obviously meteors are made with precious metals that are very, very strong usually. Starmon is the same. Well, he actually gains, he becomes gold, and he gains a scarf and glasses, I believe, if I recall. I don't know about the scarf. The scarf might be baseline. He does gain glasses, though. I do remember that. Where's Super Starmon at? Motherfucker, where you at? I passed him. I might not actually have him unlocked. Right here. No, that's Dark Super Starmon. Look at this motherfucker. It's this, but gold. Where's Super Starmon? Do I not have him? He's right here. Yeah, he looks different. Like Gatsumon into Icemon to Meteormon are literally the same fucking model, essentially. If you want to think of it that way. Just retextured. Where is he? Where's that fucking rock? Look at this rock. Look at him. He fucking digivolves into this. It's the same fucking thing. And he digivolves into this. The same fucking thing. It's egregious as hell, and I fucking love it. But Starmon is Super Starmon. At least he becomes gold. He gains the little spike glasses, the Kamina glasses. And he gets little frills on like his arms and legs. Oh, hi Rage. I was wondering where you were. You always show up pretty early. How you doing?
Wow.
Yeah. I need to buy new materials, speaking of. Do you sell stuff? No, you only buy vegetables. Yeah. Banana. Clothes? How much money do I have? Oh, I can go on a shopping spree. Kinda busy? Okay, that's fair. It's never a bad idea to be busy. I already have all the clothes. Banana.
Wow.
Wow. You missed some pretty crazy shit, I'm gonna be honest. Whoa, 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 I never touched that.
Wow.
You're redeeming first though. I should really bring it down to like 2. Maybe 3. So, what I mean by you missed some crazy shit, we lost Asiamon and we lost Inori. We're on our own again. They didn't die, but they might end up being. Hey, oh god, hang on, it's to be at the end of your 20s, duh. Long time no see, no, this random, but what does it mean to be the 20th? I don't fucking know, bro. Trying to chew me up with the joke, are you? Well, I appreciate the thought. I love Zubo Yeager, man. Look at him. He's very dangerous because his entire body is sharp, but he looks cute. I don't know why. I don't understand what's in anymore. Is that my path to the 20th is gone? Oh my god, he reminds me of me. Wait, I know what the 20th is. Look at his horn. His horn has a number 20 on it. I'm assuming it means to be the strongest Zubo Yeagermon. There's nothing worse than being normal. I mean, just look at that outfit of yours. Wait, this outfit is normal? I don't think this outfit is normal. What's wrong with my outfit? What the fuck? If I knew that, I wouldn't feel so lost. Your clothes should be torn, melted. Oh my god, he wants to see me naked. Oh, I think it's because it's the 20th by talking to you. Thanks. Would you mind showing me more of your fashion next time? T-shirt with a Digimon on it. Cool. Fine. I don't belong here. Clothing. I pressed the button one too many times. Where's the Digimon t-shirt at? Thought you were playing Power World. Why were you thinking I was playing Power World? I guess it kind of does look like it. It's with Agumon. I forgot that's how my dumbass hair looks like. I mentioned it at the start of the stream. You weren't here, but I have no interest in Power World because I don't really care about base building games. Finally got it, huh? Just this once, let me call you Master 20th. I don't fucking know what that means. I don't care if the pals look cool or sexy or whatever people are saying. I don't care about the core gameplay. I don't want to play a game that I'm not gonna have fun with just because it's a fucking Pokemon, like, in terms of like it's a creature catcher. I've been trying too hard. The more one tries to be 20th, the further away. What the fuck does that mean? Can't ever do the flash in your fashion. You gotta keep it simple like an accent. You're in fast, I guess. I don't know. Finally reached the same heights as you. Touching the truth to the 20th. He's gonna turn into... What does he turn again? Into? I forget what his ultimate is. Gardamon? Is that what it's called? Duramon. I was thinking of the one... Might be the Mega. This form is proof of my growth. It's all because of you. You're welcome. Ooh, wait. I might be able to fight him in the arena now. Wait, do I have to? I do have to fight him. Give me back my Digimon costume. Mission is where? Here. So now I know where to go there. Let's go over here. I don't belong here. Definitely is more going arc survival. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I'm not big on survival base building games. So like everyone's playing it because it's like, oh my god, it's finally out, and it's like I don't care. It's not my style of game. I'm not big on base builders. I barely like town builders. Like I never played any Animal Crossing game until New Horizons, and that was because I don't know. I forget why I played Animal Crossing right away. I think it's because I watched people streaming it, and I was like, that looks kind of fun. I want to try it. And then because the game was time locked, and I didn't want to, or slash didn't know about time traveling, I just played it slowly. And I'm like, all right, this is cool. And then once it got to like the game was fully open world and I get to be creative, I fell out again because I'm like, I am not creative in the fucking slightest. Same thing with Pokopia. Once the story got done and it was like, hey, you could do whatever the fuck you want, I was like, I don't know what to do. All my houses are basic as hell. People are fucking building like actual fucking cities. I'm like, I don't know, I'm gonna give my dude a fucking shed. Like Carl just has everything I dislike. It has base building, which I don't care about. It has shooting, which I don't care about. And it has almost a forced like online in terms of like kind of like Minecraft. Like it's better playing it with somebody, you know. You're in Minecraft. I also could probably not do Minecraft. Wanted to be a star. I'd have to see it come to work. Not a single fan appears in my talents. Stop and take a break. I could fawn over you. Very much you were to try here for so long when it fell into my heart. Aww. But I reached my limit. How I long for the scent of the sea. Was these a dainty bottle? Can you go fill it with seawater? Fine. The sea is at peace now. Make a name for herself outside the sea area. Can I get into Terraria? I played Terraria with friends when I was in college, and the only reason I did good, like did good as in like had fun with it, is because my friends had played the entirety of Terraria multiple times You hated the side quest? Doesn't seem like that bad yet, but don't spoil it. So they were able to kind of like just let me play, explore things, learn mechanics, learn, how the game works, be surprised by like the bosses and be killed and stuff, and they were just like, all right, like we're ready, like we do whatever the hell we want. We like essentially carry me, but like at the same time they were trying to get me involved, like, hey, can you go grab these things? I'm like, yeah, sure, fuck it. Like I had fun, but it's also like that style of game wasn't really my thing. However, I did actually fall absolutely in love, and I hate the fact that I'm mentioning this because the game does not exist the way it did before anymore. Excuse me? Any interest in the dark arts? Sure, teach me. Anyway, this was years ago now, like actual literal years ago. I was still in college when this game was out on beta. Might have even been alpha at this point. Starbound. I got addicted to playing Starbound for a while, and then I never played it for like 5 years, and then it officially released, and it became more of an RPG than a Minecraft / Terraria like.
Wow.
Oh, I have to find seawater. That might be why you seem to dislike it. Okay. It's just a giant fucking area to roam. That's fine. Assuming it's gonna be one of these random ass things I just click and it fucking gives me water. Everything forever? Yep. Because the game is unfortunately not terribly good in terms of like what it started as. Let me try to talk to people. I'm guessing there might be somebody you have to talk to for this. Potentially, anyway. Waymon! I'm not gonna do that yet. I am gonna look around because my assumption is potentially talking to somebody.
Well done.
Is that it?
Good.
I see what the mission might be in terms of like why you might not like it. I'm guessing it's gonna be this water. Yep. It's gonna be gotta find the right water.
Great.
I see what this mission is.
Great.
Trying to see if the name of the water actually changes. Which it doesn't. Okay. Alright, wait. I guess I could have talked to fucking Bergeron, but I'm already running this way, so let's just go. My assumption is this is not going to be the proper water. If I come back and get a different water, it's just going to be a really annoying back and forth is my assumption. Like, that's why you should not talk about why you like or don't like something, because it's gonna give somebody ideas. You should say it after the fact. Okay. Apologies. I just... my parents are planning to go out of the country for vacation. So they're like, hey, we got the tickets. Can you take us to the airport? I'm like, yeah, sure, fuck it. So yeah, I just had to get told that. I was worried to be another like 10 to 15 minute break. I got scared. I actually got fucking terrified. Who's this guy again? What's your name? Burning Greymon. Yeah, you're right. He's Geo Greymon's finale, right? From Sabers. No, that's Shining Greymon. I'm stupid. Shining Greymon. Yeah, I'm stupid. Not gonna work. Smells kind of funny. Blah blah blah. He's not gonna like it. I have to get more water. Watch. Yep. Thought so. The annoying part is just the back and forth. Hope they have fun. Yeah, they almost always do. That also means there's a chance that we do earlier streams that week, because I don't have to worry about because usually I help my father with things around the house, because he has a slightly injured shoulder, so he just can't like lift heavy things on his own. So every now and then I keep myself available during the day in case he needs something. What would the actual water be? I'm gonna guess up here somewhere.
Well done. That one.
What? We didn't kill? Bitch.
Oh yeah!
What? I did not click that, by the way. Legitimately, I did not click that.
Well done. There.
Another one I didn't kill. Nice crit.
Oh yeah!
Trying to see if anything has different text. Funky seawater, so that's not right.
Wow.
Let's keep looking around.
That one.
Really?
Oh yeah!
The problem is the water, not the water icons, but the radius disappears. So I don't know specifically which one would be the, like, where the area is for water anymore. You said it's all about location, so shouldn't be anything over here, right? Yeah. That post-it note is crazy. Hi, Ingram. Oh, hi. Thanks for the follow. Oh my god, I just realized. I was like, wait, I know who Ingram is. Hi. The post-it note is crazy. I mean, is it wrong? I don't think it's wrong.
There.
But how you doing?
Ready to go.
Stop going ×3. I just want to go ×2 speed.
Oh yeah!
Is this clean water?
There! Preparations complete.
It's 4:30. I forgot you're British. You're British. How's your baked beans? Or sorry, beans on toast doing? Anyway, I'm doing alright. Why are you awake? Or did you wake up early? Just trying to see if any of these are different text compared to the normal funky seawater. Not eating beans on toast so you were old enough to cook. Good. So hopefully that means more than like 3 years. Alright, so we're going back, and then if this isn't it, I'm just literally gonna Google it because I don't want to waste my time. Because if none of them have like this different text for it to be like, hey, it's good seawater, then it's just gonna be a guessing game. And that's honestly bad game design if it's always like if it's always the same text and you have to guess. Home at 8:30 and your sleep show is always kind of fucked. Yeah, that's kind of what I know about being a streamer, right? Because a lot of things that happen in the streaming world happen in America, so they're very, you know, a lot of people have to work around America time. All right, do you like this water, buddy? Nope. Okay, time to Google. Because I refuse. I refuse to waste my time clicking like 10 of them. Trying to find, yeah, more. AI, please don't fucking try to help me. You don't have a visual. Okay. Found it. Freaking Google Gemini was trying to be like, hey, to do it, you gotta talk to Marine Angelon. Then you need to find clean seawater. And it was like, do you want more help? I'm like, yeah, I want a fucking image. Doesn't have images. So I'm like, all right, fuck you, Google Gemini. And I just clicked an actual website instead of trusting Google Chrome's fucking AI overview. Ugh, disgusting. You wanna know what's weird, Ingram? Like, you're looking for more British VTubers. I'm trying to find more Pacific time VTubers. I know one. I'm not friends with them. I just know one person that's a VTuber that lives on the West Coast. And for those of you who might know them, Milky Ways, I believe, is in the West Coast. Either that or she was born there. One of the two. Here, how do I go down? This way. Milky Toes? No, Milky Ways. Gigantic titted space cow. So it was different text. Of course, they put it in the opposite fucking corner that you are not gonna see. Cannot tell you the difference between East and West Coast. 3 hours. If you want to know, according to Europe time, Ingram, where I'm at, is GMT -8, and East Coast is GMT -5. So it's a 3-hour difference, which doesn't seem like a lot, but 3 hours is a long fucking time when you're trying to be friends with somebody, you know? Imagine if you found her and be like, hey, the streamer I watch, Rinkumori, called you Milky Toes. How do you feel about that? And I'm like, I did not call you Milky Toes. I'm sorry, Milky. Milky is like one of the white girl VTubers of all time. I just mean like, it's very clear that she has like white girl tendencies. Kind of wish time a bit more of it's just enough to really awkward. Yeah, exactly. Half listening, that's fine. Very good. I think it's funny. I was like, he's like, hey, did you know Rinkumori called you Milky Toes? What? Oh. Yeah, it's on the surface. Man, fuck you, Migraine Angemon. You're a bitch. Fucking got you what you wanted and you don't like it? God, just imagine. This reminds me specifically of the movie, Grown Ups, where Adam Sandler's kids are like, I asked for Voss water. This is like Evian or something. Are you trying to kill me? I'm like, oh my god, these fucking entitled pieces of shit. You seem alright now. Don't be ridiculous. You think I make a convincing actress? Maybe, because you're a fucking bitch. Not one thing has gone my way since I came here. Maybe I shouldn't have left the ocean. Elver, you see this third one coming out? I did not know that. Hell of a reference. I actually like Grown Ups. Grown Ups 2 is whatever. But I actually like Grown Ups as a movie. Scent of surf still lives in my mind. How long for the sea? Let's go back. It's a really chill, good movie. Yeah, like it's legitimately just like turn your brain off. It's just, you know, the premise makes sense. It is kids all grown up, have a family. They're just hanging out because the thing that brought them together, their coach, died. So it's like, it's literally just people getting to know one another after they all grew up after like 30 years or whatever, right? The concept is simple. Like, if you don't like the movie, it's just because you don't like the actors. Like, you don't like Adam Sandler, you don't like Rob Schneider, you don't like Kevin James, you don't like who's the other guy? David Spade. Like, it means you don't like them, and that's fine. Doesn't mean the movie's bad just because you don't like the characters that are in it. Princess lost upon the blind. Melissa remains. Oh, my character is sublime. Your fans are waiting for you, buddy. Think of it, they're also in the sea. Perhaps that is where I truly belong. Oh my god, you're going back. Wow. Wow, you dumb motherfucker. Kind of wish there was more slice of life movies. Yeah. Most slice of life movies, just like excluding Grown Ups, right? Most slice of life movies these days are rom-coms. Like, it feels like producers, writers, whatever you want to call them, can't make a movie that's just about people living lives in a movie if it's not about romance. And I think that's where Grown Ups actually succeeds. Even if people might not like the movie, they actually succeed in being just like it's a chill movie, and like there's no real stakes. Like, the stakes are real. It's just somebody doesn't like you when you were a kid and they still don't like you as an adult. Okay, that's just fucking real. Complete. 70s Kill Boys, holy fuck. Oh my god, actually. Give me that. What's this down here? SP. Ooh, speed, that's nice. Just save for health next, I think. Can anybody else digivolve because of these stats that I just increased? They can. Skull Greymon? And somebody else? Might not be Skull Greymon. I think I fought a Skull Greymon, so I don't know who that is. Skull Satamon, maybe? Either way, we'll go for this one. Oh, Panjamon. Or the Ice Leomon? Wasn't he originally called Panjamon? I guess that's a Digimon World 2 thing where they didn't really translate them very well. My first exposure to Digimon in Black Crazy. Oh yeah, no, like if you want, if anybody was okay with older games, I would absolutely have told people start with the Digimon World games, because there's 4 different games of the Digimon World games in the original. Not like there's been a remake or 2, but like the OGs, there's 4 different games, and they all 4 of them are different genres. The first game is a Monster Raiser simulator. The second one is Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, but Digimon. The third one is actual Pokemon, but Digimon. And then the fourth one is Dark Souls, but Digimon. Who's that? 1060 speed. We'll transform. Who are you? Oh! What's it called again? Rise Greymon, right? Yeah, Rise Greymon. 60% accuracy. I don't like that, actually. 940 Spirit. You're actually pretty close. I'll wait on you. Oh! Get turned to Jewel Beam on. Your stats here. You're too far away, realistically. 24 levels to get to it, but I'll just turn it to Jewel Beam on. Not expected to be Dark Souls to be the last genre I mentioned. Yeah, exactly. The reason I say it's Dark Souls, it is a dungeon crawler game. Top down. Oh, sorry. Let me change it. It's not Dark Souls. It's technically more Diablo. Technically, it's more Diablo than it is Dark Souls. The only reason I say it's Dark Souls is because when you die, you lose your money on death, and I think you can level down in that game if you die too many times. That's why I say Dark Souls, is because it's like you lose stuff on death, but I think it's theoretically more the equivalent of Diablo. Oh, I just realized I'm capped on my dudes. Well, it's fine because I'm trying to digivolve them. I just need to hit rank 7. Yeah, we're fine. In that case, I should have swapped them out for somebody who needs actual levels. It's a vaccine and a virus, so we can put Gigadramon in, or somebody lower level maybe. Cherrymon. I have 2 Gigadramons, I just realized. This is what I think about Greydamon. I guess I can put my Otismon in. And for my new vaccine to train up, I guess I could do Jewel Beam on. Oh, why not? I'll do a different team. Do these trees have mustaches? Cherrymon? Yeah! Hang on, I'll show you. How do I check his things? Oh. How do I check his things? I forget how I check stats in this game. There we go. Yeah. He's a mustache. He also he's from the first anime. If you watch it in English, he has the voice of a really old a really old person. He's like, I'm the wise tree, Puppetmon, you really shouldn't fight the children. They're a lot stronger than you are, and Puppetmon, they're not fucking stronger than me. Because he actually sounds like that, by the way. And then when Puppetmon fucking gets like destroyed in one shot by Metal Garurumon, Puppetmon goes like, Cherrymon, what do the kids have that I don't? And then in his fucking old man voice, he goes, friends. Then he fucking just explodes or turns into Data. Oh shit. Need to put on the other mission. Because I need to go to the Paradise Coliseum. That being said, if you've never watched Digimon, I absolutely implore you to watch the first season. Digimon Adventure. There's two of them. There's Digimon Adventure, Digimon Adventure 02. Just watch the first one. You don't have to watch the second one. The second one's a little bit more of a slower one. Both of them are good, by the way. But if you just want just a quick exposure, it's 50 episodes long, and it's just the OG Digimon. So it just gives you what pretty much everybody else grew up with, like got exposed with it if they started from the very beginning, like I did. And it's genuinely very good. There is a remake. I would not do the remake just because it's not actually like a full remake. Hi. The tree can grow better fish. That sounds real. Pursuing normalcy. Put a normal work for a normal win, but it just felt so normal. This all normality has to offer. Is this as far as I can go? Oh, does he Digivolve? Oh my god. Perhaps the thing now. Step off the normal path. Hey, can't let in like this. Rise above the ordinary. Oh. Blasted. He did turn into Greatamon. That's right. Cursed place has an extraordinary edge. Rescue to pass the 20th. Yeah, it's. I'm not even kidding. Look on YouTube, because recently Toei Animation has been putting a lot of their OG animes just for free on their YouTube channel. Curse weapons can be powerful too. I think it might be the new Digimon Adventure that's on there. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I saw them just posting like 5 or 10 episodes a weekend of the OG anime, even Adventure 2, I think. Why must curses be bad? But my honor is to master this weapon. Cool. I can fight him potentially, is my guess. But yeah, like check YouTube. Legitimately, just might be there for free. It might be there. Ooh. More skills. If it's amicability, I think I want more health for that because they're very defensive Digimon. What's this one? Oh shit, give me this. A chance to recycle? What's for we now? Need 200 more, exactly 200 more. Can I fight him? I can. Wait, do I have a balanced team? I do not. I like having a balanced team usually because it's like they may have oh, okay, they might have just like, it might have just been like a temporary thing. Might have been like, oh, it's Digimon's anniversary. Well, we're posting the whole fucking series for everyone to watch for free. Oh, our champion managed to seize the title of the 20th. Is it just him? Shit. That means I have wrong Digimon in there. Because he's a vaccine. You too wish to walk the path of the 20th. I should be able to win this pretty easily though, because
Let's get this match on!
it's time.
Preparations complete.
Uh-oh, he gets to go twice. Ow. Oh, he just guaranteed he goes first? Okay, take a gun to the face, bitch.
Launching cross art.
For her neutral special, the agent wields a gun.
Here goes! Crimson Wave of the Beast King!
I don't know why, I just have to say it whenever I fucking launch. I launch the shooting cross art.
I got this. Ruler cannon.
Crystallize him. Damn it. Ow.
You're ready!
Uh-oh.
Crossblade!
Oh.
Crimson Wave of the Beast King!
I believe I can't even change Digimon. Oh, I can. Can I? I can. Oh, come on. She does not deal a lot of damage, but he's been paralyzed, so that's what's chill. Mega Digimon.
Please?
I need a heal though.
Oh yeah!
Oh.
Crossblade!
Ow. That's an interesting skill. Just forces them to go first in the next round.
Crimson Wave of the Beast King!
Wait, why did I do like half damage there?
I got this. Ruler cannon.
Oh, isn't his damage? Oh, I know why. Because this game has the mechanic of torrent, I guess, if you're a Pokemon fan.
Crimson Wave of the Beast King!
But I believe it's only for the turn that you actually get to low health, and it's not just as long as you're low health. Uh-oh.
Crossblade!
Yeah.
Yeah!
Kill.
Crimson Wave of the Beast King!
And she has my heal, so we use her to heal.
Oh yeah!
See how strong this is. That's a lot weaker than Hydro Water.
You're ready! Crossblade!
It's a really cool attack. Ow.
Yeah! Here goes!
What trait is his attack that's causing neutral damage on a data type? Kill. Kill. Gonna kill. Kill. Dick. Oh, he did it! $50,000 yen! Holy fucking moly, I'm rich! Who did you all? Nobody did y'all into anything new, you're a fucking liar. Wait, what? Another Jewel Beam, huh? Oh yeah, I was gonna wait on that. That's why. There's nothing new besides that, right? Yeah. Okay, now we get the fuck out of here, Blue Marimon. I also think it's really funny how Marimon has two different versions. I mean, it has multiple, but I mean, like the versions that are literally just retextures. Because there's Marimon and it digivolves into Blue Marimon, which, by the way, is the exact same thing, just blue. But that one also makes sense, being stronger, because if you know anything about fire, Blue Flame is stronger than Red Flame. It's hotter, I mean, unfortunately, is what I'm trying to say. So it does make sense why Blue would be an ultimate and Red would be a champion. Rather orange. Okay, let's go to the Dark Field. Let's keep going to the story now. Should I heal? Am I healed yet? I am healed. We're good. Oh, there's something to break. Yeah. Oh wait, I just pick it up. Oh, it's just a fucking item. Do that so I know where it is. Oh my god. I guess we are in the dark area, so it just makes sense for it to be Infirmon and this motherfucker. What's his name? Kurisarimon?
Oh yeah.
Fuck you. Infermon's actually kind of scary just walking around like that.
Preparations complete.
God, I still remember Infirmon from the first Digimon movie. Oh, they resist water? How the hell do they resist water? I think it's creepy, yeah. So this entire Digimon line is essentially just like a virus personified.
Yeah.
Like I'll show you his pre-Digivolutions, because like you'll see what I mean by it's just a virus personified. Like a computer virus, not like a, you know, like a human virus. Like the whole thing is in the movie, especially its design was to try to like destroy the internet essentially. Like it got into the mainframe and tried to, I think it tried to launch a fucking nuke, if I recall. Didn't it? Didn't it try to launch like a nuke or something?
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry.
I forget the plot of the first Digimon. The first Digimon movie is fucking crazy. Anyway, a baby version of that Digimon, right here. Already looks kind of virus-like, right? Digivolves into this. Still, looks kind of like a fucking computer virus, right? It is pretty cute though. Like Subathon's actually pretty cute. This motherfucker is cute. He turns to this. So he's like, okay. He's getting more virus-like. Digivolves into the thing I just fought. Kurisarimon. Absolutely, very much more virus-like, right? Then it digivolves into Infirmon, which I can't click on because I can't digivolve into it. The thing I just fought. And the final form of that is called Diaboromon, or I think it's in Japanese it's just Diabolosmon. Diablomon it might be, because you know Japan doesn't mind calling something the devil, but you know America cares about religion and stuff. What's this? Who are you?
Glurp.
Glurp. I'm here to negotiate.
Hey,
I've come to bargain. Glurp.
Something's off with Lord Plutomon lately. Glurp.
Glurp.
I know I'm just an underling, but
Glurp.
I'm starting to worry. Glurp.
Glurp.
I don't have the courage to go and see what's wrong by myself. Glurp.
Glurp. Want to go together? Glurp. Not Glorp. Glurp.
Great! Glurp.
Glurp.
You can count on me. Let's go see Lord Plutomon. Glurp.
Let me get him all the thing. Where's the next comes? Oh yeah.
Now then, get it over with. Give it your best shot. Glurp.
So like the plot of the first Digimon movie is fucking crazy.
Go ahead, Glurp. I'm ready for it.
Cause like Infirmon gets into the fucking virus, like the mainframe.
Face off, Glurp.
Glurp. And it tries to like destroy like something. I think it's trying to fire a nuke because it's like just trying to cause chaos. So then, you know, Agumon and Diabomon try to take out the Infirmon, and then one of the Digidestined is like, hey,
sweet talk, Glurp.
he's multiplying. And then by the time they get to like the area where he's at, there's like a million of them.
You can
Where,
You must have
and
something for
basically
me.
the
Just
premise
say
of the
whatever
movie is
comes
just
to
to show off
mind.
Omnimon, because Omnimon shows up and he just starts using his fucking cannon and blasting like 100 of them at a time. And he's like, "Where's the last one?" Because it's like a giant arena. I don't know, live in peace and harmony. And then there's like 2 seconds left, and he has to use the gray sword to like destroy him, and like it finishes with like 0.5 seconds or something like that. Glurp. The first Digimon movie is fucking cool. Glurp.
Whenever I hear
But in
an
America, it's
empty
combined with like 2 or 3 movies, I think it
cringe
is.
so hard, I end up leaping somewhere. Glurp.
Glurp.
I can sometimes choose where I land, but depending on the cliche, I might end up somewhere kinda strange. Glurp.
Glurp.
I start feeling nauseous, and it puts me in a really glurping bad mood. So I don't like doing it. Glurp.
Glurp.
Still,
To the
it's for Lord
movies.
Plutomon after all.
I've watched Summer Wars.
So
Summer
I've
Wars is
got
also
no
fucking great.
choice but to
If you
glurp
watch the
it
first
up.
Digimon movie and think I fucking like that, watch Summer Wars, because it is very much a similar concept, but it's not Digimon related. I've never heard of Bell. Is it recent? Because I know Summer Wars is pretty old.
Time to go see Lord
Relatively.
Plutomon. Glurp.
Glurp.
There!
And
Ready to
speaking
launch.
of, where can you watch that? Summer Wars is legitimately good. I forget where I saw it on. I think I just saw it on TV. And I was like, shit, I gotta watch this, because this looks like fucking, this looks like OG Digimon 2021. Okay, so it's the latest one. Like, looks like it in like the best way. Like, it has the same art style. It's a really good art style. Very classic, like hand-drawn style. Even if it's not hand-drawn, I'm not sure if it was. Like, Summer Wars, that is.
Let's hear a real groaner. Glurp. A platitude that'll send me flying. Just say whatever comes to mind. Glurp.
Glurp, what the fuck is he trying to say? What the fuck's a platitude? Oh, is it just like random positive talking? That's what he means. The world is more beautiful than you think. I think that's one. You can tell they're all the same director for sure. I'd imagine. Very similar, like, it's not even the art style, it's the shots and the way characters act.
It can't be. Ready to go.
Data Crusher!
Also, for those of you that like Digimon, or at least want to know a little bit more about this game, the previous game, Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, and Digimon Story Cyber's Hacker's Memory, Kurisarimon and Infamon, their special attacks just had like a 5% chance that whoever they hit instantly fucking dies. So like you just get hit or hit someone with the attack, the screen would invert, and it's just instant death and the Digimon explodes.
Oh yeah!
It's the funniest RNG check you could ever have.
There! Ready to launch.
Crimson Wave of the Beast King!
Oops, nice crit though.
Oh yeah!
I'm sorry.
Any more Digivolution? I'm getting close. Oh, only 10 more speed. Wait, do I have... I should have some. Brave points, I think they're called? Courage points. I have so many augment chips. I could just force somebody to Digivolve, but I'm not going to do it yet. What am I looking for? It was my Doberman. Nine, 10. Holy shit, he fucking jumped from 909 to 938 in 2 levels. there are EVs in this game? Is that what's going on? Oh, I only needed 890. I already had it. Anyway, who are you? Who are you? Okay. Oh, Cerberus? Is this like Cerberus one? Like legitimately? That's cool. He has 2 attacks. I like when Digimon have 2 special attacks. Causes mode change. Wait, whoa, 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 buddy! Oh, what the fuck is these? How does he look when he's not? Eevee's a Pokemon? Ah, shut up. What is the form change? Oh. Oh. That's really cool. That's fucking awesome. Wait, do they turn into the same one, by the way? Let me see if he Digimon with the same people. They should be able to, because it's just the same Digimon. Just mode change. Dude's got hands, yeah. Okay, they still turn into the same one. It's just Cerberus on White Man. Sorry. What does a WM stand for? Oh, wizard mode. Because you see it says Dark Beast up there, and then up there it says Vaccine Wizard. So it's wizard mode. Sorry, I was thinking White Man. I'm sorry. I'm really stupid. Forgive me. Anyway, he's joining my party now. Wait, I need to change my sorting to level. There we go. Sorry, Jewel Beamon. Can I ride him? Curious. Oh, nobody's rideable in my team, it looks like. Let me double check. You can ride Cerberus. Baby. Doggy. I like it.
I'm sorry.
It's funny because this Digimon reminds me of like Garurumon, but like just with armor, if that makes sense.
Everyone.
But at the same time, that doesn't make it bad. Like you might be thinking like, oh, if it looks just like another Digimon but with armor, does that make it bad? No. Makes you really cool actually. Even those who betray you are returning in their own way. I'd like to be the umbrella that shields you from the rain. This is a fucking stupid one. The other one's really cool, but the top one pisses me off. God, he's fucking huge, bro.
There. Ready to go.
Going into lurk mode, of course. Enjoy your lurk. I'll probably be stopping pretty soon. Probably finish this area, then we'll stop for the night potentially. I want to see what his attacks look like. Mad Dog Fire, go!
Mad Dog Fire!
That looks really cool. It's not very strong because I'm very low level compared to the Infamon. But I want to see what Infernal Divide looks like. Oh, it's because he resisted too. Oh, it's AoE, that's as well. Very weak. How does this look?
You want some of this? Infernal Divide!
Yo! That looks cool. Can I ride him still? I can't ride him when he's in White Man mode. Oh, never mind. I was just still in getting items mode.
Wow. You got it. Preparations complete.
Here goes! Crimson Wave of the Beast King!
Kick him. Ooh.
Great!
Garp.
Let's hear a real groaner, Glurp. A platitude that'll send me.
Hard work pays off. No good deed goes unrewarded. I like this one. Oh my god, Skull Greymon? Just straight up a Skull Greymon?
There! Ready to go.
Crimson Wave of the Beast King!
Get him!
You want some of this? Inferno Divide!
It's so cool! Burp. Oh wait, Mega Xenomon doesn't belong on this. Against these guys.
Crimson Wave of the Beast King! Data Crusher!
Yeah. Oh, okay, I understand now. Wait, is he? Ow! What the fuck? Wait, whoa. Does Lady Devimon have 3 extra attacks she can do? Whoa, what the fuck is this broken data here?
You want some of this? Inferno Divide!
420.
Please?
What's the Lamau? Because you threw shit at me? I mean, it's there for a reason. This crit. Mommy.
Much appreciated. Everyone.
Kill him.
That one. Ready to launch.
He's weak to fire. I could tell because this guy did 3.0 damage with his basic attack.
Oh yeah!
Wait, what? Have you been here already? Wait, what? Oh, did he teleport me out?
Oh man, it's not gonna be easy leaping such a huge distance.
Glurp.
No, this is for Lord Plutomon.
Glurp.
Come on!
Glurp. I never want to see anyone cry. Glurp. I have to baby dragon by the way. Their name is Kumo. Thank you though. They were given to me as a gift by an artist that was making my emotes a long time ago.
Great. That one. Preparations complete.
He's actually not a part of my model, he's detachable. I just put it on my shoulder because it's cute. He's also my TTS bot. Though it's honestly really hard to notice that he's talking because his mouth is just like... There's not really like a very big animation for it. Glurp.
Crimson Wave of the Beast King! Oh yeah!
I'm waiting for the scan rate to hit 200.
Everyone.
Why are all the chests open? Like smart Digimon better? Yeah, sure. Oh shit, he just changed. Oh wow. Set of Digimon's worthy of Digivolution, but I'm still waiting for this. You know what? I have items. Might as well use another courage point on Flymon. 940 Spirit, which is exactly 1 level away. Who is this? It's not Okuomon. It has to be a bug Digimon. What's a bug ultimate? It's not. It can't be a Kabuterimon. It can't be Okuomon. It has to be somebody I might not know. Oh shit, Megadramon. Never mind. I never had Megadramon. Really? Okay. Fucking love Megadramon. First of all, Megadramon's fucking cool. Look at him, dude. I got titty tattoos and everything. Look at him, motherfucker, dude. Fuck. His attack is called the Eradication Attack, which, by the way, the original name is actually called Genocide Attack. But he's also the opposite to Gigadramon. It's the opposite of him. Or rather, not the opposite, but like a buddy, like a compatriot to him. Yo, what the fuck?
That one. Preparations complete.
Heavy Trooper ready to launch. Sorry, that's a Super Mario RPG reference. I don't know if anybody knows that game. Yo, that's really cool. Those eyes move. I didn't realize that.
Let's hear a real groan.
Next. All you need is love. All you need is love. Who sings that song? It's like a really old band, right? Like the Beatles or something. I just realized that little gold thing is him actually fucking throwing up, by the way.
There! Ready to launch.
Alright, fuck this.
Take this!
Beatles? It is the Beatles. I don't know why I didn't realize. Like, not that I never listened really to the Beatles. So it's like, it's not like something that I know off rip. But like just in my head, remembering what it sounds like, I'm like, that sounds like the Beatles.
Great!
Glurp. There we go, he's maxed. So now we convert him. So the whole thing about converting them at 200% is they start off with 30 talent and free stats. Rather than, you know, the equivalent of whatever, how many you have before that. Munzimon. Oh shit. Hell yeah. Oh my god. Those stats are pathetic. I think it's because it's like it's actual Digivolution, so it has like the same personality, and it's like, oh, personality gives you like a 30% stat drop that you need per, it's like per rank or something. So fucking cool. He's huge though. Unknown, unidentified. It's kind of crazy. Then he turns into Diaboromon, which I think, who the fuck, 40 talent. Which one is it? Probably this one. This looks like it'd be him. And then this one, I don't know who any of these guys are. I don't know what this one is that needs specifically talent and rank 8, not even rank 7. It must, usually things that are higher ranked and require like more stuff are stronger Digimon. So it could be like a Royal Knight, it could be like a Apakarimon, or otherwise known in English, Apocalypmon. which is the big bad of the original Digimon series. Spoilers, but you don't really get told that until the final episode, so like it's not really a spoiler.
Let's hear a...
Less is about the journey than not the destination. That's also a really annoying one. This is really funny, just making you pick which one you hate more. Oh.
I'm sorry. There!
Jesus Christ.
Do it!
Such a big explosion. Kill. Kill.
Crimson Wave of the Beast King!
Oh. Forget. I keep forgetting to check if this guy's more magic or physical. Karuberismon, I mean. It would make sense that he's magic because he has something literally called wizard mode.
Here goes! Crimson Wave of the Beast King!
I should attach spells though. Actually match what he is. No, he's definitely more attack. Okay. Fire physical. Water physical. I'm just gonna give him a lot of coverage. Ice. No, not ice. We'll probably do like rock and lightning, or rock and steel. Flint and steel. That's probably what we'll do. I said the line, but like it's literally earth and steel, so it basically is flint and steel.
Let's hear it.
Our bodies may be far apart, but our hearts are ever near. That's one that'll make him peak for sure.
Darn, this isn't where I parked my Digibeetle.
Oh my god, this is so fucking stupid, bro. I picked the wrong one. Is that what's happening?
I'm sorry. Everyone.
Did I like actually? Was him supposed to be like, you picked the wrong option?
You got it.
Because if so, that's really funny. That there's a wrong option.
Preparations complete.
Hit him with a volcano bomb. Shit, he didn't work.
Let's hear a...
It's okay to believe in the inherent goodness of people.
Darn, this isn't where I parked my... Let's hear a...
The road is full of beauty, as are you. I think this wrong option is really kind of funny.
Darn,
fuck.
This isn't where I parked my There's
a chest here, but no, shut up. What did he say? Do I need love to get stronger? Sure. Oh shit. CP. Ooh, CP gain. Wait. Physical attack skills or CP gain? Nah. The fact that his personality changed, I don't really like. But it's ooh, medical spray DX. Thank you.
Let's hear a...
I don't know how I was picking everything right except for this one.
Darn, this
What
isn't
the
where I parked my
fuck?
Digibeetle.
How the fuck did I pick all the wrong
Ready to
options?
launch.
4 in a row! Either that or because I was on the wrong path. Every single one was going to be incorrect and I had to reset.
Crimson Wave of the Beast King!
That's potentially what was happening. Where
ready to launch.
Kill him. Everything's weak to fire in here, I just realized. I guess it makes sense if this is the dark area.
Great! Glurp.
Glurp.
Let's hear a real...
Okay, so once you get it wrong, it tells you the right one to go. I can't believe I picked the right one like 7 times in a row. It's a 50-50 chance.
Let's hear a...
Yep, so this is still the right one that I picked before. I think it's here where I picked the wrong one before. I believe this is the first one that I got wrong. I picked that one, so it's probably this one. Yeah. Oh, so you have to pick it right before the game tells you to pick it again. Got it.
There! Preparations complete.
Because that one before I didn't get right, so it didn't give me the right option. So I was like, hey, do you remember what you didn't pick? I almost forgot.
Yeah.
Alright, new
Let's
one.
hear a real...
Everyone's happy, this is my happiness. I think this one will work. Yes, I think we were right. We did it! Oh god, another 50-50.
Let's hear a real...
LA for love, not money. I don't think it's that one. I think it's gonna be this one. Yes! Yes! We did it! I think I'll stop here actually. I didn't want to stop there in the other spot because I didn't want to forget what the right path was. I think we're gonna stop here though for now. Congrats, yeah, it's just a maze. It's the Lost Woods, baby. Go back over here. Let me turn my music back off for a second. Alrighty. Shut my game down. Alrighty. So tomorrow we got Retro Night coming up. Again, I'm debating if I'm gonna do OG Zelda or like Mega Man X or something. But we'll do something old school, really old school. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Angrim, for showing up. I appreciate it. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I don't know what else. It's kind of warm. I'm gonna go, I don't know, take a cold shower or something and get to bed. So I will catch you guys tomorrow. No raid. Good night, it's fine. Oh yeah, of course. Thanks for stopping by. I'm surprised you did, Mr. Europe. Damn. I guess Ruby's here too for Europe. Anyway, see you guys tomorrow for Retro, okay? I'm gonna go get some water and cool off. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow, okay? Bye.